Hi everyone, so first of all I want to acknowledge some things that are going on here. First of all, I am a Barbie girl, and secondly, I have a microphone. I have a new microphone. This is a Yeti Blue mic. It even has a pop filter. This was given to me by my biggest channel supporter, so thank you. And I'm still working on the placement and everything regarding it. I mean, you can kind of see it a little bit, but I do want to have it, closer to me so that you potentially can hear me better, of course. So a while ago someone asked me to talk about my favorite or my, I think, top 20, top 15 or something like that, Maiden songs, and I think I answered something like I could talk about their best and also their worst maybe. I haven't really seen that many videos with both of them combined in one video, and if you have seen my album ranking, I thought I talked about specific songs in that one as well, so you might see some of these coming and maybe some you might not. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into them. And I want to start with the worst, so the, I guess, bottom 15 songs by them. And number 15, so the one that isn't quite as bad as the number one, is going to be When the Wild Wind Blows, which I know some people really love that song. I've seen a lot of people either here on YouTube or on the Maiden forums discussing this song, and it seems to be pretty polarizing. I just don't think it's very interesting musically speaking. I think it's a bit longer than it really needs to be. It also gets kind of stretched out too much, in the sense that I think the song, the story that it has is something really simple and short, and it gets stretched out to the point where it ends up being longer than it deserves, and it makes it kind of boring as well. I also don't really love the way Bruce sounds in this song. It's just a little too strangely soft in a way that I don't think really suits him that much. Number 14 is The Time Machine, which of course is from Senjutsu, so that is the one song that does appear from that album here. But yeah, I think I said that as well in my review or my thoughts for that album. I said that I didn't think it was very interesting, that it didn't go anywhere, there was really nothing to it. It gives you this idea that it's gonna tell you this story, and the story never really happens. And also the same happens musically, it doesn't really go anywhere, it's like a very long introduction to something that never happens. 13 is Age of Innocence, and the chorus kind of sounds really jarring to me here, almost like it doesn't really belong to the song. And it's also a song that is kind of a commentary on more present time politics, I guess. It is very on the nose about it, it doesn't really say anything you haven't heard before, so it's just kind of an easy skip. I would be surprised if anyone is like a huge fan of this song. Number 12 is The Man Who Would Be King. For one, the instrumental aspect of this song is kind of bland. The lyrics are not really that bad, but again, they don't really develop, they don't really go anywhere. It doesn't really have any sort of real storyline or introduction and conclusion or anything. Number 11 is Charlotte the Harlot, and I want to go on a rant on something here. I think maybe some of you might think that I'm like 30 years late to this discussion, but especially these earlier bands usually will have or would have songs about prostitution and about their experiences with prostitutes or whatever. Some of them were fictional, they were like fictionalized versions of things that they had experienced or whatever. Like this one, I would say, for example, is that. And they're basically berating the woman the whole time. They're like, oh my god, this is such a bad job, you could do better, you should work on something else. This one in 22 Occasion Avenue are really like, don't you see how this is destroying you? And it's a little bit, I mean, don't take this the wrong way, I'm a huge fan of these guys, of course, but it does feel a little bit inconsistent that they, if we are to believe their stories that they have said in interviews and stuff like that, they themselves are part of the demand. So why are you judging the offer, I mean, I'm glad that's being left behind. Of course, this band hasn't written anything regarding, this character Charlotte or anything in, I don't know, decades. I do dislike Charlotte just a little bit more than 22 Acacia Avenue. In fact, I would say that 22 is among not necessarily among my favorite songs, but I actually do enjoy that song as well. And also that song is a little bit more compassionate towards the Charlotte character. This one, the first one, is a little bit more, I don't know, judgmental. I mean, both are judgmental, I guess, in different ways, but 22 is a bit more, you know, it feels a bit more well-intentioned. This one is more, it's a bit more, you know, I guess, immature. Of course, they were, I guess, pretty young when they wrote this. Or I guess when Dave Moody, I think it was, who wrote. But I don't think it's a terrible song or anything. I might enjoy it, I guess, for once in a while, but you know, when I stop to think about it, even just a little bit, it feels, you know, it sours the mood a little bit for me. So number 10 is New Frontier. In my previous, or rather in the video where I was ranking the albums, I mentioned that I didn't like Gates of Tomorrow, or I mentioned it as one of the ones that I didn't like from Dance of Death, the album. But actually, I was thinking of this one. I was thinking of New Frontier. Gates of Tomorrow isn't really that bad. New Frontier is really annoying, the sound, for one. It's not very creative in the lyrics. Again, it's kind of really on the nose in the way it delivers the message. And I don't know, I feel like it basically has nothing to say that hasn't been said a million times before. And again, musically, it's also not extremely interesting or enjoyable. So yeah, it's kind of higher on the bad songs ranking. Number 9 is Judgment of Heaven. This song, I think, is basically a worse version of The Unbeliever in the same album, which interestingly, it seems to me that a lot of people really dislike The Unbeliever, but they are a little bit more forgiving towards Judgment of Heaven. I think it's probably because in The Unbeliever, his voice, Blaze Bailey's voice, kind of does break a little bit at some point, but I actually do like that song. It feels a little bit more passionate. You know, this one feels a little bit more... This one, Judgment, feels a little bit more, I guess, generic in comparison. Like, it wasn't really given that much thought. Number 8 is Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter, which a lot of people, not exactly a lot of people, but I do remember that some people mentioned that it was in a worst rock or metal songs list of all time or something like that some years ago already, but I don't really think it's bad enough to be in a list like that. But I do think it's kind of the worst, among the worst of By Them specifically. I used to like it a lot just because it's kind of catchy, I guess, but after a while you realize that the first minute or so kind of tells you everything you need to know and everything else is kind of the same, more of the same. A lot of these worst songs by them are they have that issue where the first minute or the first 2 minutes you kind of get the idea and everything else is just kind of filler basically. Or the songs themselves are filler, pretty much. Number 7 is From Here to Eternity, and I want to say something. A lot of these worst songs by them are going to be from Fear of the Dark, which I mentioned in that ranking video that I think is my least favorite song by the album by them. And a few people, most of the commenters were really, I think, understanding and mature about it. A few people here and there were honestly really aggressive about the fact that I didn't like that album that much. So yeah, if you were mad at that when you watch that video, you're gonna be equally angry at these choices here. But yeah, so 7 is From Here to Eternity. This one is also a Charlotte song, so that's already something against it. But at least I think Charlotte the Harlot has some energy, some passion going on there, if you will. Passion, interesting wording, but this one in comparison just feels really lacking. It feels kind of cynical as well towards Charlotte in a way that 22 doesn't feel at all. Number 6 is The Apparition. I think it's just such a phoned in kind of filler song. In terms of the theme of the lyrics, it also kind of overlaps a little bit with Fear of the Dark. And the title track, of course, and then it kind of changes the topic and it basically ends up not really meaning anything. And again, it has that issue where I feel like the first minute or so is all you're gonna get from the song, and everything else you're basically wasting your time. I know I might sound a little bit harsh, but honestly, I'm just talking about in comparison to the rest of their discography. I think these songs are not that great. I think these songs are for the most part, are perfectly fine as background music or anything like that. They're not horrible, they're not they don't make my ears bleed or anything, but they have so many better songs that these are just the ones that I think are just not really worth revisiting. So number 5 is Chains of Misery. It just sounds generic. I basically have the same issues with it as I do with The Apparition. They're basically both, I think, are kind of filler songs. They don't really say anything. They kind of lack energy. Number 4 is Weekend Warrior. Again, it's a boring song. It has nothing to really say. I know that it does have a topic that it's talking about, but even then, it doesn't really develop that topic into anything. It kind of proposes something, but even then, not really. And also, I don't know, I feel like even the chorus and everything kind of makes it merge a little bit with the other filler songs from Fear of the Dark. In my opinion, are filler songs basically, which makes them all really sound the same, I would say. Now, I know I said that most of these songs aren't even bad. I wouldn't really call them bad. However, there's only 3 songs, the top 3, that I would say are honestly bad songs, especially by their standards, which are pretty high. These ones are just really baffling to me. Number 3 is Don't Look to the Eyes of a Stranger. This is pretty obvious. I mean, it's a very repetitive song. It's a very repetitive song. It doesn't have the best singing. I do see why a lot of people don't like Virtual 11. I don't really dislike it or anything, but I have to say that the singing, Blaze Bailey's singing on The X Factor is much more, it really fits the X Factor and the sound of it much more than it does Virtual 11. And it definitely doesn't sound as good with some of the songs on Virtual 11. Even Future Real doesn't sound that great, but you know, it's such a short rocker that, you know, you can't really dislike it too much, I guess. But Don't Look to the Eyes of a Stranger is so long and repetitive that it's a little bit more grating. Number 2 is, of course, The Angel and the Gambler. A lot of people assume or say that this is the worst by them. The only thing, this is just worse than Don't Look to the Eyes of Stranger, only because of that really annoying keyboard sound, and it is like double the length that it should be. It wouldn't really be that bad if it had just have the fat trimmed out, you know. It would really be a much more acceptable song, and it's really odd because it feels like such an obvious mistake to make from a songwriting perspective, you know. So number 1 is Hooks in You. It's one of the few songs that I would feel more confident in calling them just bad. I mean, both musically and lyrically, it's like really uninteresting, like it's really nothing. And you know, songs can be baffling and confusing and everything, but they should never be boring. So now I want to talk about my best songs by them, my top 15. So number 15 is Dance of Death. It's a very interesting one. It's dark in theme, but it's actually a very fun sounding song. It's also very catchy. The riff as well, it's a pretty catchy one. And yeah, I think it was written by Yannick, I think, and it's definitely one of my favorites by him. Number 14 is Where Eagles Dare. It's a really exciting first track. It's really not boring at any point, you know, the drums, the vocals and everything. Most of the song I think is actually instrumental, and it's pretty cohesive as well, while also not being too repetitive. You know, you're not really hearing the same thing over and over, but at the same time it's not getting too, you know, it doesn't have all of these instrumental sections that randomly have nothing to do with each other, if you get what I mean. So number 13 is Brighter Than a Thousand Suns. It's a really dramatic, dark sounding and melancholic sounding song. It's lyrically, I would say it's definitely among their best, except for that really awkward line, the EMC squared, we made God with our hands line, which is a little bit awkward and unfortunate. I mean, I do know that it's kind of a clever play in words, I guess, but when you hear it for the first time, or when you hear it without context, it kind of does feel a little bit dumb within the rest of the lyrics. But overall, it's really such an amazing song. 12 is Sign of the Cross. It's an example of a long song that really justifies its own length. It seems, I guess, some people interpret it to be about the Inquisition. It is, I think, the song and some of the parts of the lyrics, you know, the name of the rose. I think it's the name of a novel, or is it a movie, or both, I guess. Which I guess could also be about the Inquisition, or I'm not sure how people made that connection. Maybe it's obviously I'm missing something here, but you know, it's obviously religious in theme. And and it seems to be about the narrator about to be judged or maybe executed, and he's starting to reflect on the situation, on his death, and on everyone around him and what they believe in and what he believes in. In that way, it's kind of similar to Hallowed Be Thy Name, not just because of the execution theme, but also like these last moments of reflection before death. Number 11 is Acid High. It's a very high energy, very fast paced, or at least it feels very fast paced song, which also really fits the topic, the mood of the actual song. Usually Maiden songs about war are kind of a little bit darker, and maybe more tragic, I guess, in mood, but, or you know, they're meant to criticize war in some way, but this one kind of highlights the aspects of like bravery and boldness of the pilots of the war, aside from, you know, the, I guess, adrenaline that you might feel as a pilot in the situation, which I guess Bruce might have related to. I'm not sure if if he was already training to be a pilot at this point in, you know, the 80s, but he was probably already interested in the idea if he wasn't already, you know, training and already a pilot at the time, because I don't really know when he started, but you can tell he was already into fencing at the time, because Flash of the Blade, either that of the Duelists or both, are about fencing, which I also like those songs as well, but I wanted to have sort of a variety of albums, as much as I could have it, while also being like an honest, you know, top 15 songs. So number 10 is The Number of the Beast. Of course, it's an iconic song. It has one of my favorite solos in any Maiden song, the one by Dave Murray specifically. I really love it, and sometimes I just listen to the song to listen to that solo again. Number 9 is Wasted Years, and I was debating between this one and Stranger in a Strange Land from Somewhere in Time, but I guess some people might say that it's a little bit overplayed or overhyped, but first of all, that riff is just iconic. I mean, there's a reason why they kind of like, you know, revisited, I guess. There's a reason why they repeated it, if you will, on the Book of Souls. And the song really stands out because it's more about, I guess, more personal things than usually this band has. I mean, of course, a lot of songs are more personal, I guess, in lyrics, and they're about their own lives. But most of their top songs, or the songs that most people associate as being their best ones, are usually like history related in lyrics, right? This one is, of course, time related, but it's also, you know, the kind of things that an average person could relate to. Number 8 is Flight of Icarus, and this is another, you know, piece of storytelling in song. I don't know how to explain the chorus other than it just kind of does make you feel as if you were reaching for something that's really far away, which is basically what the song is about, in pretty literal terms, which is what makes it feel so equally high energy and also really tragic, especially those lyrics, to ashes his grave. Number 7 is Passchendaele, and I like that it has so many moments of silence or just like generally quiet moments going on, and there's also like these really explosive, really loud moments, which probably fits the theme of, you know, someone telling their final words while lying after this battle happened, and they're basically recounting what happened in the battle, not exactly narrating, but, you know, describing, and also not just narrating flatly, but also like explaining the experience of, you know, having people die close to them and being shot and being about to die. So number 6 is Power Slave, and it's a song that is a reflection of death and denying death, which is something that I have actually talked about in this channel before. I made a video about me fearing death and the whole concept of it, you know, me having kind of an issue with it. And I think I find it strangely relatable for something that is about, you know, something that obviously happened a few thousand years ago, I guess, because it's about the ancient Egyptians. It has also one of their best solos. I mean, first there's a, you know, softer one, and there's this other one that picks up the pace. And that part always surprises me, even though I've heard this song like 100 times, and every time I'm like, I don't know, taken aback. So number 5 is Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. I love how it has all of these little instrumental sections, and it gives you like this feeling of anticipation between them, and also like the satisfaction of each of them ending and then starting another one. Of course, the lyrics are also great, but the highlight is truly the instrumental sections. So number 4 is Rime of the Ancient Mariner. The song is really has it all. I mean, the storytelling, the instrumentals, You don't even really have to listen to the lyrics too closely to love the song because of the way it sounds. I mean, it's not exactly catchy, I guess, maybe not from the first time, but I mean, it's just really easy to love, you know what I mean? But of course the lyrics do add to it, you know. It's basically explaining why it sounds like this in a certain section and why it sounds like something else in another section, you know, because of course the music itself is also moving the story forward, or is also telling the story in some way. And it's one of those songs that are long, but also they're just as long as you really need to be. So number 3 is Revelations. It has these really cryptic lyrics that give you a pretty good idea of what's going on, but at the same time they don't have to like spell it out for you. It kind of calls out to the different kinds of symbolism, specifically kind of Christian or occult symbolism that is not too vague, but it also, you know, has some room for interpretation. And I've listened to this song so many times, and yet every time it always feels unexpected. Number 2 is Infinite Dreams, another one where I would say the instrumental sections are the main highlights, but there's nothing bad to be said about the vocals or the lyrics either. It has this really beautiful soft intro followed by more anxious sections where the narrator is talking about not being able to sleep because he's afraid of the nightmares that are plaguing him, that are haunting him. And of course the changes in tempo also correlate to these feelings of like the calmness of drifting to sleep and then having these nightmares and then waking up again and calming down, and you know, the cycle going on in the story and in the song as well. So before I go to number 1, I want to give you some honorable mentions. So one is For the Greater Good of God, which I find just a slight bit repetitive, but it's really great anyway. Phantom of the Opera, where the production of the song isn't quite as great, of course, it's the first album, so you know, but it's really such a great song anyway. Look for the Truth, which is a really underrated song. Great lyrics, maybe the last couple minutes, the last third or so of the song is a little bit more repetitive or more boring, I guess. The Trooper, which of course is very iconic, I do think it's a little bit on the overplayed side. And Stranger in a Strange Land as well, which I just think is a very cool song. That's pretty much all that I have to say about that, so let's get to number 1. So number 1 is of course Hallowed Be Thy Name. I know it's kind of an obvious choice, I guess some of you might think it is, but there's a reason why it's so loved, why it's such a fan favorite and such an obvious choice. First of all, just the music leads you through each mood, you know, each mood in each part of the story. There's like a very stark division, like the introduction, the development of the story, the climax, the conclusion, and all of these little reflections of life that a person might actually go through before they die, when they know that they're about to die. I think this is also one that you don't really get sick of, even if you, I don't know, have heard it several times, or you listen to it maybe a little too often. Like The Trooper, I think that song is, even though it's amazing, even though it's great, it doesn't have as much variation, so it might feel a little bit more expected if you listen to it too often, whereas Hallowed feels always really fresh even though you listen to it a lot. That's my experience anyway, and the reason why I didn't have honorable mentions for the worst is because I just don't think there's enough of them, of Maiden songs that are even not just bad, but I don't think there's even that many average songs by them that are average enough to be in that bottom 15. And they have, I think, around 180 songs or so having around 15 songs that aren't that great, I think is a pretty good number. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, you found it interesting or entertaining, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.